Python provides all the tools you need for handling files in your operating system. You can open and read files, you can write or append to a file, and also store and use the information within a file into your application. As you do with any file in your file system, whether it is a Word document, a picture, or a video, you first have to open the file in order to read or modify its contents. For this, Python gives you the open function, which actually creates a file object that can then be used in different ways. You are not required to import any modules to be able to use all the file methods Python provides to the user. So don't worry about importing anything. Let's first create a txt file in the working directory and insert some data into the file. Then start playing around with it. I have already created a file named routers.txt having some networking vendors as its contents. So let's see the file. Okay. Now it's time to create a file object and read it. This is how you can do this. First, you should go into the Python interpreter shell. You should type in a name for the file object you create, let's say my file. Then the equal sign, and then you will use the open function. So open, and in between parentheses, you first specify the name of the file you want to open, enclosed by double quotes. So routers.txt. Then, separated by a comma, you enter the access mode in which you want to open the file, also enclosed by double quotes. So, let's open the file for reading. This means we should use R. Okay. The basic modes in which you can open a file are R for reading. Keep in mind that this is the default mode, so if you don't type in R when opening the file, like we did here, Python will open it for reading, so read only by default. The second mode is W for writing, and the third mode is A for appending to the end of the file. You may also encounter B. This stands for binary format, and it is useful when playing around with binary files like photos, Adobe PDFs, or executable files, and so on. I will provide a complete list of file opening modes somewhere in the next lectures in this section. Now let's check our file object. So, my file. Notice that the object was created in memory at a particular address right here, and that the file was indeed open for reading. Mode R right here. If you want to check the mode in which a file has been opened, you can check out an attribute named mode for your file, like this. You can type in myfile.mode. So again, we see that our file is currently open for reading. Now, having the file open, let's see how to access and see the data within the file. Python provides three important methods to read data from a file. The first method is read, which returns the entire content of a file in the form of a string. So let's use myfile.read. So you see we have all the vendors in a single string, separated by the new line character. Although not very static, this may be useful for searching something in the entire file or maybe matching some text patterns inside the file. We will talk about patterns and regular expressions in the next section. One more thing about the read method is that you can tell Python to read only a number of bytes from the file and return that many characters, not the entire file. You can do this by entering an integer in between parentheses, like this. Let's say you only want Cisco to be returned. This means the first 5 characters. You would type in myfile.read 5. This doesn't return what it should. Did I lie when I said it will return the first 5 characters in the file? Well, no, I didn't. This is where the concept of cursor enters the game. The cursor is the position at which you are currently located inside the file. So after you read the entire file, you are positioned at the end of the file. That's why nothing is returned when you want to read further. You actually have nothing to read anymore. You already scanned all the text in the file. To go back to the beginning of the file, you have to position the cursor before the first character. You can do this with the seek method. So seek, where in between parentheses you enter the position, or better said, the number of bytes from the beginning of the file at which you want the cursor to be positioned. If you want to start from the very beginning of the file, you will use seek of 0. So let's use this on our file, myfile.seek of 0. Okay, now we are at the beginning of the file. To see the current position of the cursor, you can use the tell method, like this. myfile.tell. Okay, this shows us that we are positioned at 0 bytes from the beginning of the file. Now we can read the file again. We wanted to read only the first 5 bytes or characters in the file. So let's do this again. myfile.read of 5. Okay, so we got Syscall returned. Nice. Another method is readLine. This method returns the file content line by line each time you use the method. Let's see this in practice. But first, let's go back to the beginning of the file again. So myfile.seek of 0. Okay. Now let's use the readLine method. So myfile.readLine. Sorry. Okay. Let's use it again and again. So we got each line of the file printed out, and then, in the end, we got an empty string. This signals that we reached the end of the file, or EOF as it is called. The third method of reading files is the readLines method. So readLines. Okay. This returns a list where each element is a line in the file. This method is very useful for iterating over a file. So let's see it. Let's go ahead and go to the beginning of the file again. Sorry. myfile.seek. Sorry, seek of 0. Okay. And now let's apply the readLine method. So myfile.readLines. Now you can use a for loop to work with the elements in the list. First, don't forget the seek of 0 methods. If you forget to position the cursor, then you will end up with an empty list when calling the readLines method again. If you do a readLines again, you indeed have an empty list. This is the proof. So myfile.seek of 0 again. Now let's print the vendors whose names start with a capital A. For this, we are going to iterate over the list provided by readLines and use a condition stating that if the list element, which is a string, starts with a capital A, then go ahead and print that element. So for line in myfile.readLines, colon. Then we have the if statement, if line dot starts with a colon and a print line. Okay, notice here that we also got a blank line after each string. That's because we had a \n in each of the list elements. That gets printed too. Now it's time to see how to write and append data to a file.